hope everyone here has spent um, a good week, um, a great day so far, a fantastic weekend also. Um, I have spent a restful weekend so far. And so this is my only message for this weekend. I was supposed to post yesterday, but I was just too tired. So today's message is going to be really quick because I'm actually tired, but I need to post this. It's a message that I had previously planned to post on the gram, but I'm gonna post it here instead. I never posted it ever. It's gonna be short and sweet. The reason why I'm wearing this crown. I said that I would only wear it when it's in regards to Kingdom Marriage songs, Ode to Kingdom Marriage songs. I only have done 2 so far out of the 18 that I have to do. 2 more are coming this week. I'm not gonna say when because I might change my mind about the day if I say a day. So just this week. The next 2 songs are coming this week. What was I saying? Sorry, I'm really tired. Yeah. Yes. Okay, yeah. So that's why I decided to wear my crown. In regards to this particular word, it does have to do with this topic of kingdom, but not necessarily kingdom marriage. In this case, I wore it, I guess, just to keep you guessing, keep you thinking also. Like, what does kingdom marriage represent to you? Is it just like a promise that God gave you? Is it something that you heard about and you're interested about and you want to have for yourself, which would imply covetedness? Is it something that you don't even believe in? Something that just feels so out there, not that important, that just feels, far-fetched, like crazy, and not in a good sense. And you're just like, is this thing even real, Okay. To each their own. Everyone has the right to their own opinion. I'm fine with that. God is fine with that too. Okay. In regards to this particular word, however, I'm gonna get into more of between the lines kind of subject in regards to kingdom marriage, because kingdom marriage is not just marriage done in the kingdom of heaven way. It's much more than that. It goes much deeper than that. And I believe that's why Abba wants me to talk so much on my first channel ever of kingdom marriage this, kingdom marriage that, because there are many layers to this term, this fact, this movement called kingdom marriage. So before I start, I'm just gonna pray and pray that God may cover this video session, filming session, that no technical difficulties may ensue, that the enemy stays out of it, and that whoever needs to hear this message will be led to it. Dear Abba, our Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ, our brother, and the Spirit that is holy, our comforter, we come to you today in order to discuss this idea, this subject, we could say highly coveted subject. We could say this almost viral movement-ish type of thing called kingdom marriage, in order to get to the nitty-gritty of it, get to the bottom, the source of it. Where does it stem from? What does it imply, really? Is it just surface level, or is it deeper than we even think? I know that you will lead whoever needs to hear this message to this message. And if not, this message will stay unnoticed, but I will have done my job, so please help me to do that. To do just that. I ask all that of you, not on behalf of my own name. Oh yes, and please cover this session. Please cover this filming time of the video. Keep the enemy out of my house, out of this time, out of this session, out of this message, really, because he has no part in it. And please cover all your children that are watching, not watching, that are following you, not following you, that know you, don't know you, that want to know you. And all my brothers and sisters, socialites, do the same thing as me. Cover them also. Watch over them and continue to guide them in your precepts and according to your wisdom, which is going to be a big theme today. I thank you for this so far really restful weekend you've given me. Thank you for all the successes you've given me so far, and thank you for just waking me up this morning also. Thank you. Please continue to do so and never stop loving us. I ask all that of you, not on behalf of my own name, but on behalf of your Son Jesus Christ, of the same, forever and ever, and from generation to generation, forever and always, until the end of days. Amen. Okay, so today my title is called Coal Miners Digging for Treasure, as in treasure hunters, or even pirates, looking for booty or matey or something like that. Okay, and basically, can you recognize a treasure when you see one or stumble on one? Okay. So this word, it's not really a word, it's more like an exchange. So from me to you, and I'm gonna do two things. First, I'm going to read to you Bible verses that I've looked for in regards to treasure. I just looked for treasure Bible verses. 77 came out of that, which tells me a few things. 7 means the completion of God. 10 means the completeness of order from God. And so 77, that's 7 times, is it 7 times 10 or 11? It's 11. And then we have 11, which stands for, just a minute, I want to get this right. Right, 11. Okay. 11. Yes, 11. In Bible verses can symbolize disorder, chaos, and judgment. So I was right. Um, so, and in regards to 10, why I mentioned 10 is because 10, which represents law, responsibility to said law, testimony of that same law, and completeness of order from God. The number that comes after that, 11, represents the total opposite. So if 10 represents the law and all things related to the law and completeness of order, well, 11 represents irresponsibility to the law, because 10 represents responsibility to the law. And it represents, 11 also represents breaking the law, because the law itself in number 10 implies that you respect the law, right? So therefore you follow the law, you don't break it. But in 11, it's the opposite, so it represents breaking the law. And then we have testimony. No. Then we have completeness of order from God. But since 11 is the complete opposite of 10, in this regards, 11 in Bible verses would also imply disorder, as in chaos, as in disorder, DISORDER. 10 represents completeness of order from God. 11 represents the reverse, the complete opposite. The order is dismantled, so disorder. Therefore, the order is not completed, and there is no order, which brings chaos, which brings judgment, in opposite of 10 in Bible verses, which represents testimony of the law, because you follow the law, you feel responsible for the law, it gives you a testimony, and from that testimony, the completeness of order from God is, well, completed. With 11, it's the complete opposite, so you feel irresponsibility to the law, you break the law, you dismantle the order of God, so the order is never completed, which brings forth judgment instead of a testimony. So 7 is the complete perfection of God. 11 stands for judgment, disorder, breaking the law, irresponsibility to the law. And 10 stands for the law of God, responsibility to the law of God, testimony from the law of God, and completeness of order from God. So 7 times 11, which we can jot it down in this case by 11 representing mainly chaos and judgment, and 10 representing mainly the law of God and completeness of order. Seven times 11. So it's not 11 times 7, it's 7 times 11. So that means the responsibility, the breaking of the law, the disorder, and the judgment happens 7 times. So the number 11 is represented, is replicated 7 times, multiplied by itself 7 times, which brings us to the number 77. And I'm just gonna look it up. I never looked that number up, but I think maybe I did and I forgot. 77, however, yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna read it. Okay. So the number 77. While the number 77 rarely occurs in scripture, far more common is the appearance of double sevens, some of which have a special meaning. Noah wanted to determine the status of the water after the great flood. He sent out a raven and later a dove from the ark, Genesis 8, verse 7 to 8. The dove returned without any symbol of life. 7 days later, he resent the dove. This time it returned with an olive leaf, proving that the waters had almost completely subsided, although the ground was likely still waterlogged. He waited yet another 7 days, double 7, or 77, and sent the dove yet again. This time it did not return, which meant that the ground was dry enough for many kinds of animal. Okay, appearances of number 77. Psalm 77 is one of several in the book of Psalms written by priests serving during the time of King David. 2 verses in particular praise God's character and his mighty power to help his people. Your way, O God, is in holiness. Who is so great a God as our God? You are the God who does wonders. You have declared your strength among the people. Verses 13 and 14 of Psalm 77. Egypt's Pharaoh at the time of Joseph receives 2 sets of dreams. Genesis 41, verse 2 and 3, and verse 5 and 6. Each set contains double sevens, 77, symbolizing a 7-year period of plenty, followed by 7 of famine. Joseph's inspired interpretation of the dreams not only earns him freedom from prison, but also the reward of becoming Egypt's second most powerful person, Genesis 41. Then we have Esau, Jacob, and the number 77. God, when twin brothers Esau and Jacob were born, declared that Jacob, born second, would become greater than firstborn Esau would. Genesis 25, verse 23. Years later, Jacob, taking advantage of his brother's hunger, convinces Esau to sell him his birthright. Genesis 25, verse 28 to 34. Well, I'll be. I'm sorry. I'm still waking up, and I just saw this and I'm like, okay. In 1723 BC, before Christ, which 17 in biblical verses means total victory in Christ, and 23 means overcoming adversity in biblical verses. So let's continue. So basically, in 1723 before Christ means quite literally in total victory in Christ and overcoming adversity before Christ. Both Jacob and his brother Esau are 77 years old, so double sevens. Jacob, in response to the strong urging of his mother Rebekah, Genesis 27, verse 6 to 10, pretends to be Esau, his twin brother, fraternal, not identical, in order to further ensure he receives the greatest blessings from their father Isaac, verses 18 to 30. Esau's understandable anger at his brother for his sinful deception forces Jacob to flee to Haran. Haran. It's a region somewhere in the world. Okay. Jacob, after fleeing the wrath of his brother, ends up meeting a relative named Laban, Laban, which is a relative of their mother, his and Esau's mother, Rebecca. Smitten by his younger daughter Rachel, he agrees to work 7 years for the right to marry her. Genesis 29, verse 1 to 20. After laboring for 7 years, Jacob is tricked by Laban into marrying his oldest daughter Leah instead of Rachel, which was not his choice. Although infuriated at Laban's deception, the two men nevertheless agree that Jacob can also marry Leah, whom he did choose, but that it will cost him another 7 years of work. So 7, 7, double 7, 77. It therefore costs Jacob 2 sets of 7 years, or 77, in order to marry his beautiful and beloved Rachel, the one he actually chose. These two women will ultimately become the two primary mothers of the nation of Israel. And then we have additional info on biblical meaning of 77. The first taking of a life recorded in the Bible is that of Abel at the hands of his brother Cain, Genesis 4, verse 8. The second, however, was carried out by Lamech, the great-great-great-grandson of Cain, Genesis 4. He was, through Cain, the seventh from Adam, not to be confused with another Lamech, who was the 9th through Seth, another son of Adam, Genesis 5. So basically, after Cain killed his brother because of jealousy, envy, and covetousness, God gave Adam and Eve a second son because, well, Cain was now a fugitive, and he was running for his life basically because he killed his little brother. He was basically the first murderer of lifetime, like first murderer ever. And God gave Adam and Eve another son called Seth. And actually the genealogy of Seth is from which will come out Jesus Christ at some point in time. So there was another Lamech who was the ninth son through Seth, the third and replacement son to Adam and Eve. Lamech, the first polygamist, also. He was a polygamist? I mean, the Lamech that was the seventh after Cain, the one who also committed a murder. So Lamech was the first polygamist. He used 77 to underscore his innocence about his act being murder. Because I honestly don't remember this story, so I'm just gonna read it in the HBFV version because that's the one they are offering me. And Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice, for I have killed a man because he wounded me, a young man because he hurt me. For if Cain is avenged 7 times, as in, yes, Cain was running for his life, and he pleaded, God, now that I have killed my brother, whosoever shall find me will kill me. And God said, if anyone kills you, you will be avenged by me personally 7 times 7, so 77. So yes, for if Cain is avenged 7 times, and Lamech, this Lamech, is the great grandson of Cain, and also happens to be a murderer. Okay. I mean, that fits into generational curses, I guess. Okay. So for if Cain is avenged 7 times, then truly Lamech is avenged 77 times. 77 times. Genesis 4 verse 23 to 24. Although he, the Lamech, the murderer Lamech, although he may have killed a man in self-defense, Lamech seems rather boastful about his ability to exact revenge rather than regretting what took place. Only the book of Psalms has more than 77 chapters in the King James translation. The only chapters with more than 77 verses are Numbers 7, 1 Chronicle 6, Psalm 119, and Luke 1. Only 4 books have more than 77 verses. So in this case, 77 or 7 times 7 or double 7 means an array of things. It means kind of like a dichotomy, which is, oh, I said that before, but I don't remember what it means. Wait a second. Yeah, I don't remember it. I'm just gonna look it up. Wait, quick. Sorry. Yeah, sure. Would you? Dichotomy. Oh yeah, see? A division or contrast between two things that are or are represented as being opposed or entirely different. So in this case, 77 means, wait, let me just find my place. Okay. So in this case, 77 means a whole array of things. It means 7, which stands for the complete perfection of God. It also stands for the number 11, which stands for judgment, irresponsibility to the law, disorder, and breaking the law, which is in complete dichotomy, opposition to the number 10, which comes before 11, which stands for the law and thus following the law, responsibility to said law, testimony from the law, or even to the law, and completeness of order from God. But as we've read here on BibleStudy.org, this is such a wonderful website in regards to anything biblically related. 77 or 7 times 7 or double 7 also stands for cause and effect. It does, because like when Noah, during the flood and all that, wanted to know if it was safe to come out of the ark, he sent out a raven and a dove from the ark. And the dove returned without any symbol of life. I don't know where the raven went, but the dove returned without any symbol of life. He waited 7 days. He sent out the dove. The dove came out with an olive leaf. He waited another 7 days. He sent out the dove, and the dove never returned. So that means the dove found a place to stay and just like do life there. So it's cause and effect. It's Noah and his family and all the animals of the world are insects and all that are in the ark, protected. But I guess, either they're bored, which whatever. I mean, there wasn't any television there, Netflix or whatever, But were there books? I don't even know. Okay. But they were safe and secure. But I don't know, maybe they were bored or maybe they were running out of food, blah, blah, blah. They needed to get out of the ark, but they needed to do it in a safe way. So, cause, wanting to get out of the ark. Action, sending out the raven and the dove. I don't know what happened to the raven, but the dove came back with no sign of life. Effect, waiting another 7 days. After another 7 days, the dove is sent back again. That's, caused by the waiting of the 7 days. Then action, sent out the dove. The dove comes back with an olive leaf in their beak, which causes them to wait another 7 days. To wait another 7 days before resending the dove out to the sea. So after the dove comes back, there's an olive leaf in their beak. This the effect that it causes, that action, is that they're staying inside again. So cause, again, they're waiting 7 days and then they send out the dove. That's the action. And then the dove never comes back. And the effect is they're finally able to get out of the ark. Twice 7. Send out the raven and the dove. I don't know what happened to the raven, but the dove came back with no symbol of life. Wait 7 days. Send back the dove, comes back with an olive leaf in their beak. Wait another 7 days. That's the second 7. Sends out the dove. The dove doesn't return, and that affects that they can finally leave the ark. But it's also in regards to cause and effect, and also dichotomy, like opposites, in regards to Genesis 41 verse 2 and 3 and Genesis 41 verse 5 and 6 in regards to the 2 sets of dreams. Okay, for those who don't know, Joseph was a dreamer, like a proper dreamer. He had prophetic dreams and God interpreted them for him. There were others also who dreamed. There was Ezekiel. God, I knew that. I knew them, but I can't remember them for some strange reason. Who else dreamt? Who else was a dreamer? Joseph was definitely a dreamer. Ooh, Daniel was also a dreamer. So was Ezekiel. And then there's another one that I can't remember. Jacob had one dream, but he wasn't a dreamer per se. I can't figure it out. Oh, well, there was Samuel. Yes. Was it? I think. Maybe. Samuel was a prophet, and I think he also was a dreamer. He also had prophetic dreams. Jeremiah also, I think. He was also a prophet. And I think he also had prophetic dreams, but I'm not sure. But the ones I'm sure about, absolutely, absolutely sure about, Joseph, Daniel, Ezekiel. So yeah, let's just go with that. So, but for those who don't know, in this regard, yes, Joseph was a dreamer, like a legit dreamer. He had prophetic dreams, and God gave him the interpretation of those dreams. And the Pharaoh of Egypt at one point had two very disconcerting dreams, one after the other, which is why it's verse 2 and 3 and verse 5 and 6. And nobody, no shaman, no magician, no sorcerer, no warlocks, no whatever, could give him any explanation of the two dreams. Joseph said, let me just talk to God about it, and then I'll come back to you with an answer. Because, I mean, that's what God does when you ask him for something and you know how to listen and you have a proper relationship with him and, you know, you trust that he will come through for you. He just does. So, he went to God. He's like, yo, hey, God. Yeah, the Pharaoh just these two disconcerting dreams and he doesn't know what they mean. Could you tell me so I could tell him? Blah, blah, blah. And God told him, and basically what it meant is that okay, I'll tell you like a gist of the two dreams. The first dream was 7 ears of corn. Ears of corn. You know what I mean by ears of corn, right? Like the actual corn, like the maize, the thing, the 1 minute. Ay. That ears of corn. So imagine 7 of those. Okay, there were 7 that were full, big, fat, plenty. You could tell that they would make a wonderful cookout or something. Okay, but then there was also 7 ears of corn who were dry, small, thin, wretched. They were like good for nothing, basically, and there was really nothing, no substance, no nutrients found in them either. And if I remember correctly, the yes, the 7 that were dry, the 7 ears of corn that were dry, if I remember correctly, ate the 7 ears of corn that were fat, big, and plenty. And then that was verse 2 to 3. In fact, let me just double check. I don't want to say something stupid. Genesis 41. Okay. Genesis 41. Verse 2 and 3. Yeah, I'm just gonna, 2 and 3. Okay. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and flat shed, and they fed in the meadow. No. I'm gonna go with the corns first because I'm talking about the corns first. Okay. So, and he slept and dreamed the second time. And behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk. So there was 1 stalk of corn and 7 ears of corn, rank and good. And behold, 7 thin ears of corn, and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. Yes, exactly. So, yes, exactly. Yes, okay. So, there's this, what is it? Stalk for the corn to grow up on. And at the very top, 7 big, fat, juicy, plenty ears of corn grow on the stalk. And then, let's see if I can find dry, just so you can have a clear image. Dry ear of corn picture. And then these kinds of ears of corn that you can really do nothing with because they're so dry and thin, and there's nothing in them for you to eat. There's no potential for a good cookout here, like none whatsoever. 7 of those spring up on the stalk right under the 7 ears of corns of plenty. And then, I was right. My memory is good. And then the 7 thin, like dry, like with no nutrients, not good for a cookout ears of corn, devoured the 7 rank and full ears of and plenty ears of corn that were above. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. Because, he realized that he wasn't in a field and there was nothing, no corn in front of him. Then we have the second dream, that is actually the first that the Pharaoh had, which is verse 2 and 3. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine. And kine is another word for cows and fat fleshed. So basically they were fat, well nourished. They would provide lots of good steaks, if you know what I mean, okay? And the cows, fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine cows came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed. That means they were thin, they were basically almost dying. You could see literally the skin on their bones. It was quite frightening. And stood by the other kine cows upon the brink of the river, where the fat cows were eating. And then the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine, the dried up cows, did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine cows. And so Pharaoh awoke. So in both dreams, the fat gets eaten by the thin and dry and malnourished and basically famine. So Joseph asked God, what is this about? And God told him basically, it's simple really. Like, both dreams represent the same things. The fat ears of corn of plenty and the fat cows or kine, whatever, represent 7 years of plenty, followed by the 7 ears of corn that are dried up and just no good, and the 7 cows that are so thin and malnourished represent 7 years of famine that will follow the 7 years of plenty. So basically, the 2 dreams meant y'all need to prepare, because 7 years of plenty will come. 7 years of plenty will come. Well, you can harvest all you want and you will get as much nutrients from the earth as you can get, even more so than you need. Because after those 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine will come. And during those 7 years, nothing will grow. All the animals will die. And y'all will die too, if you don't know how to prepare for that. And so Joseph told the Pharaoh, and at first was like, "Pfft," as if, because, he thinks he's God and all that. I am Ra, R-A, which stands for like sun in Egyptian language or whatever. I am the sun. I am God. Blah, blah, blah. No way is this going to happen on my terms, according to my law, according to my godly desire, lowercase g in this case, because he is not God, okay? And he says basically that he proclaims basically that Joseph is a freaking liar, and he throws him back into jail because that's where Joseph ended up. The Bible is so interesting. I mean, there's so many stories, and this one isn't even where this story ends, but I mean, this is where it gets like really good. Yes, I know, even though it doesn't seem like it, but that's why I'm talking about like dichotomy also. I mean, he gives the Pharaoh the explanation of the dreams. Pharaoh gets mad, throws him back into jail. And you think, okay, well, that guy has a lot of resentment for what he can't do for himself. But Joseph didn't lose hope because he knows that what God told him and that he told the Pharaoh is the truth. So he just stayed with that. And he went back into prison knowing that he was right and God would vindicate him somehow. And he did. Because then Pharaoh got the same dreams. He was plagued with the same dreams. And he realized that Jacob boy was not lying. So he called back Jacob from the prison which became its platform, to the palace. He went to the palace under the orders of the Pharaoh, and he was deemed, proclaimed, nay, named, titled the second most powerful person in the land. And not just of Egypt, like in regards to every country and region around. He was the second most important, powerful person in the land. So Pharaoh was the king at the time. Joseph was right under him. He was a slave, guys, people. Like, he was a slave before. And he was sent to prison for something that he didn't even do. Okay? But God used that prison to as a platform to bring him to the palace where he got his position. P. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, 77 also speaks of dichotomy. Two things that seem opposite but are not really, are actually the cause and effect of one thing. So in this case, 77 means a dichotomy, like I said, okay? It's 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. And you think, how can that even happen? Well, it did. It really did. And then in regards to Esau and Jacob, which were twin, so twin, 7 and 7, double 7, double people, double boys, twins, Esau and Jacob. 77 also to me stands, as twins, one following another. Just like, the fat ears of corn were followed by the dry ear of corn, and the fat cows were followed by the thin cows. And even, yeah, in the ark, the raven and the dove were sent, but only the dove came back. And then the dove didn't have anything to show for its voyage. 7 days were waited for, and then he was sent back. The dove was sent back, came back with an olive branch in his beak. And then 7 days again were waited. The dove is sent back, and the dove never comes back. One after the other, one following the other. So And in regards to Esau and Jacob, um, uh, they were living in a patriarchal society, which means that the firstborn gets everything. The firstborn gets the birthright, so basically they get first choice of everything. They are the favored one. In this case, they are twins, but they are fraternal twins, not identical twins. They don't look the same and they don't act the same. Jacob was a quote unquote mama's boy. I mean, he was manly too, but he was mainly into things of the interior. He liked to cook, he liked to care for the sheep, he took care of the elderly and the sick. He was a nurturing man. And then Esau was more like a manly man, and he was into hunting and killing and you know, I guess, what else do manly men do? Physical exercise. He was very fit, you know. And also what's the name? Protecting his people. Yeah. So basically, Jacob was more a feminine, masculine man, and Esau was more a masculine man, basically. So Jacob was more nurturing, Esau was more protective. But God had said that but God had declared that the secondborn would be greater than the firstborn. And the secondborn was Jacob. So actually, what God had intended to happen was that Jacob would have the birthright, not Esau. But they decided to go against that. They didn't trust what God said, and they just went with their modus operandi, default mode. They just went with their patriarchal system, and they gave everything to Esau. Then there was a deception, because you know what God said should happen needed to happen one way or another. And at the time that this is like getting in the works of happening, like the deception in order for Jacob to gain his birthright, they are twins, even though they are fraternal and not identical. They were both 77 years old. It's 2 times 7, okay? And that happened in 1723 BC, which stands for, in biblical verses, in total victory in Christ and overcoming adversity before Christ. That year. So, yeah, it stands for that. To me, 77 stands for dichotomy and twins, which also stands for dichotomy, because twins, whether fraternal or identical, even though they may look identical, or even though they are fraternal, they are still twins. They are considered to be one and the same, but they're not. They're actually two different. I want to get this right. They're actually two things or two people that are or are represented as being opposed or entirely different. So even though they were twins, they were fraternal twins, One was more manly, the other was more feminine, or nurturing, caring, that kind of thing. So yeah, 77 to me stands for twins and dichotomy, which oddly enough is a really big theme in my life. Two, porque no los dos, and twins. Anyway, so okay, so that's it, and then there's the avengement, blah blah blah, because Cain killed his brother Abel and all that, Abel, whatever. Okay, so all of that is to me what 77 stands for, and that's just in regards to the number of Bible verses in regards to treasure that I found. Well, this was supposed to be a short word. I guess it's not. Okay, so let's continue. So now I'm just going to read to you the verses that I found that have to do with treasure specifically and that are related to my subject. Whoops. Coal miners digging for treasure, as in treasure hunters or pirates. Can you recognize a treasure when you see one or stumble on one? And after that, because now this has been 3 parts instead of 2, I just gave you basically an explanation of what number 77 in biblical numbers means. Now I'm going to read to you the verses that I found, and after that I will share with you a little story, a little theory that I had like years ago that fits. Okay, so first verse in regards to treasure and the subject that I'm going to talk about. Colossians 2 verse 2 and 3. That their hearts may be encouraged, having been knit together in love, and attaining to all the wealth that comes from the full assurance of understanding, resulting in a true knowledge of God's mystery, that is, Christ Himself, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. Job 28 verse 12 to 19. But where can wisdom be found? And where is the place of understanding? Man does not know its value, nor is it found in the land of the living. The deep says, "It is not in me," and the sea says, "It is not with me." Pure gold cannot be given in exchange for it, nor can silver be weighed as its price. It cannot be valued in the gold of Ophir, in precious onyx or sapphire. Gold or glass cannot equal it, nor can it be exchanged for articles of fine gold. Coral and crystal are not to be mentioned, and the acquisition of wisdom is above that of pearls. The topaz of Ethiopia cannot equal it, nor can it be valued in pure gold. Proverbs 2 verse 4. If you seek her as silver, and search for her as for hidden treasure, as in treasure hunters digging for treasure. Proverbs 3 verse 13 to 15. How blessed is the man who finds wisdom, and the man who gains understanding, for her profit is better than the profit of silver, and her gain better than fine gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire compares with her. Sorry, something came up in my notifications, but it's dealt with. Now let's continue. Proverbs 8 verse 10-11. Take my instruction and not silver, and knowledge rather than choicest gold, for wisdom is better than jewels, and all desirable things cannot compare with her. Proverbs 24 verse 3 and 4. By wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established, and by knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. Isaiah 33 6. And he will be the stability of your times, a wealth of salvation, wisdom, and knowledge. The fear of the Lord is his treasure. Job 23, verse 12. I have not departed from the command of his lips, the command of his lips. I have treasured the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. Psalm 19, verse 9 and 10. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. The judgments of the Lord are true, they are righteous altogether. They are more desirable than gold, yes, than much fine gold. Sweeter also than honey, and the drippings of the honeycomb. Psalm 119:72. The law of your mouth, as in talking to God, the law of your mouth is better to me than thousands of gold and silver pieces. Matthew 13:44. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in the field, which a man found and hid again. And from joy over it he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Matthew 13, verse 45 to 46. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking fine pearls, and upon finding one pearl of great value, he went and sold all that he had and bought it. Hebrews 11:26. Considering the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. Job 22, verse 23 and 25. If you return to the Almighty, you will be restored. If you remove unrighteousness far from your tent and place your gold in the dust, and the gold of Ophir among the stones of the brooks, then the Almighty will be your gold and choice silver to you. Luke 12, verse 33. Sell your possessions and give to charity. Make yourselves money belts which do not wear out, and unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near, nor moth destroys. Matthew 6:20. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in or steal. 1 Peter 1, verse 4. To obtain an inheritance which is imperishable and undefiled and will not fade away, reserved in heaven for you. Matthew 19, verse 21. Jesus said to him, if you wish to be complete, go and sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come, follow me. Mark 10, verse 21. Looking at him, Jesus felt a love for him and said to him, one thing you lack. Go and sell all you possess and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come follow me. Luke 18:22. When Jesus heard this, he said to him, one thing you still lack. Sell all that you possess and distribute it to the poor, and you shall have treasure in heaven. And come, follow me. Proverbs 8, verse 21. To endow those who love me with wealth, that I may fill their treasuries. Proverbs 15, verse 6. Great wealth is in the house of the righteous, but trouble is in the income of the wicked. 1 Timothy 6:18-19. Instruct them to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, storing up for themselves the treasure of a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of that which is life indeed. Matthew 6, verse 21. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Luke 12:34. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. Luke 16:13. No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. Matthew 2, verse 11. After coming into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell to the ground and worshipped him. Then opening their treasures, they presented to him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Exodus 35, verse 22. Then all whose hearts moved them, both men and women, came and brought brooches and earrings and signet rings and bracelets, all articles of gold. So did every man who presented an offering of gold to the Lord. Joshua 6:24. They burnt the city with fire and all that was in it, only the silver and gold and articles of bronze and iron they put into the treasury of the house of the Lord. 1 Chronicles 29, verse 3 to 5. Moreover, in my delight in the house of my God, the treasure I have of gold and silver, I give to the house of my God, over and above all that I have already provided for the holy temple, namely 3,000 talents of gold, of the gold of Ophir, and 7,000 talents of refined silver, to overlay the walls of buildings, of gold for the things of gold, and of silver for the things of silver, that is, for all the work done by the craftsman. Who then is willing to consecrate himself this day to the Lord? Deuteronomy 7, verse 6. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for his own possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. Exodus 19:5. Now then, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own possession among all the peoples, for all the earth is mine. Deuteronomy 14:2. For you are a holy people to the Lord your God, and the Lord has chosen you to be a people for his own possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. Deuteronomy 26:18. The Lord has today declared you to be his people, a treasured possession as he promised you, and that you should keep all his commandments. Psalm 135:4. For the Lord has chosen Jacob for himself, Israel for his own possession. Malachi 3:17. They will be mine, says the Lord of hosts, on the day that I prepare my own possession, and I will spare them as a man spares his own son who serves him. Who serves him. They shall be mine, says the Lord of hosts, in that day when I publicly recognize and openly declare them to be my jewels. That's another version of Malachi 3, verse 17. And finally, we have 2 Corinthians 4, verse 7. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, so that the surpassing greatness of the power will be of God and not from ourselves. Now I'm just going to read to you a list of themes from the Bible in regards to treasure. From Thematic Bible, I'm going to read to you the things that came out when I asked for just treasure Bible verses. Cities designated as treasure. Cities, different kinds of treasure. Judas, treasure. The disciples, kings. Judas, treasure. The disciples of Judas. Kings, forbidden to multiply, treasure. Righteous, compared with treasure, compared to saints, treasure. Treasure, a thing of highly estimated value, money. Treasure, a thing of highly estimated value. Jesus forbids the hoarding of treasure. Treasure, figurative of the graces of the Spirit. Treasure, figurative of the object of the affections. Treasure, figurative of spiritual understanding. Treasure, figurative of spiritual calling. Treasure, a thing of highly estimated value. Precious stones. Treasure, a thing of highly estimated value. Hidden. Treasure, figurative parable of. Treasure, figurative gospel called. So that's all the verses. Well, there were others, but the others didn't fit my theme. So those are the ones that I found out of the 77 Bible verses about treasure. 77 meaning dichotomy and twins, and also cause and effect. And 11 times, no, 7 times disorder, judgment, irresponsibility to the law, and breaking the law of God, which is complete opposite to 10, which stands for the law itself, the law of God itself, responsibility to said law, testimony for and from the law, and completeness of order from God. Okay, so those are my findings. And now I'm gonna get into my little story. This is something that was told to me a long time ago, and it stuck with me because it made so much sense. Okay. So I had this friend, like my best guy friend, for quite a while. And I was talking with him at some point that I think there might be something wrong with me. I said that. And he was like, why do you think that? And I said, because honestly, I don't think, because I was talking in regards to relationship, I don't, like romantic relationships, okay? I don't think that I'm what a man wants or needs. And he asked me, what do you mean by that exactly? And I said, well, the thing is, I know for a fact that men love a challenge. And I don't think that I represented a big enough challenge for men to want to pursue me. And again, he asked me, okay, well, what do you mean by that exactly? And I said, well, let's see, like in regards to, okay, if, let's say you have a girlfriend, like, talking to him, let's say you have a girlfriend. It's like, okay, I have a girlfriend. And you ask your girlfriend, like, what does she want? Because she seems angsty and, you know, there's this tension in the room and you just want the tension to go away, and you're looking to do something for her that will relieve that tension, you know, and get you into her good graces. It's like, okay, I like the sound of that. I'm like, okay. So this girlfriend of yours, you ask her, what is it that you want? And she's like, I'm not really sure. And then you ask her, well, do you have an idea at least? And she's like, I don't know, maybe. I guess I'll know it when I see it. And then you, like, let's say this is in regards to food, okay? And yeah, you just want to ask, you're just asking her what she wants to eat, and she's like, I don't know, but I'll know when I see it. So you, I don't know, what is it, you go to a food court, and you look around and you ask her, because she's not saying anything, she said herself, I'll know it when I see it. So you look around and you point her to different stalls, and to each one she's like, yeah, but not that quite. And every time she says something, it gives you like more of a hint, getting you closer to the answer of what she wants, of what she will want, what you feel that when she sees it, she'll know that's what she wants. And then the more you do this, you know, the more it poses a challenge, because now it's like almost a riddle that you have to solve, blah blah blah. And by the time that you do figure out what it is that she wants, she's super happy. You, I guess, you answered the challenge and you resolved it. Now everybody's happy, and you know, you felt the thrill of the chase or whatever, and yeah, you're happy. And it's like, okay, so what is it in regards to you then? Oh, 1 minute. All right, so in regards to you, now he's talking to me, in regards to you, what does that have to do with you not being a big enough challenge for men to pursue you? And I'm like, okay, well, let's say in that same example, it's like, okay, let's say that, yeah, just for example's sake, let's say that I'm your girlfriend, like we're together, and it's like, okay, all right. And then I said, the same situation, I'm feeling angsty, and you feel like doing something in regards to making me feel better and getting the tension out of the way, blah blah, and everybody will be happy, blah blah. He's like, okay, yeah, okay, I like the idea of that. I'm like, okay. And same situation, and as I'm a foodie, this fits completely. This is in regards to food. I'm like, and he's like, okay, all right. And it's like, do we go to the same food court or to a different one? And I'm like, well, no, actually, because that's the thing. There is no challenge with me. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, if I were with you and you asked me what I wanted to eat, I would just tell you because I know what I like. So, see, there's no pursuing, there's no challenge, really. There's no obstacle to overcome. Like, there's no thrill of the chase, nothing. And he looked at me shocked for a minute. And I was like, what? And then he just burst out laughing. And I'm like, okay, well, that's nice. You're laughing at my pain. So yeah, I'm not a big enough challenge for men to pursue me, and that's apparently funny to you. Thanks so much. And he laughed even more. And I was like, okay, cut it out, because your laugh is infectious, and I'm just gonna end up laughing. But right now, I don't feel like laughing. I feel insulted. And he started to calm down. He's like, okay, look. And then he said this: you need to understand something. It's true that men love the thrill of the chase, and they love a good challenge as much as another man, whatever. But not in regards to their woman. I'm like, what do you mean? And then he told me the last thing we need and want or desire is for us to have to guess our woman. So actually, the first example that you gave me, like my girlfriend who just doesn't know what she wants, after a while, a man would get sick of her. And I'm like, really? Wow. Well, I was totally wrong about that one. But okay, all right, no guessing. There's no need to guess because I tell you right away. But the fact that I tell you right away, doesn't that take all the challenge out of it? Like, I mean, it's making it too easy on you, isn't it? Like, there's no suspense, no nothing. You don't feel like you did anything, do you? And he said, actually, no, I do, because actually you make it clear. You make it clear and concise, and there is no guessing work, and we hate to guess our women, and it just makes it easier, and actually easier in regards to relationship is always better. I'm like, huh, I never looked at it that way. I never saw it that way. But I'm like, but still, I'm not sure. Like, what is it then about this whole men like love a challenge thing? And it was like, okay. I think I need to tell you a story. So I'm telling you a story of a story that he's telling me. I think I need to tell you a story so that you will understand what I mean by the difference of a challenge, and the fact that it's better when a man doesn't have to guess their woman. And I'm like, okay. So this is the story that he told me. Miners, as in MINERS, coal miners, who go into a cave to extract jewels, diamonds, natural resources, all of that. Miners have a system in regards to going to hunt for treasure or resources. I'm like hanging on his every word, and I'm like, okay. What they used to do before was that they would get little kids, usually orphans, to go with them in the cave in order to warn them when there is a lack of oxygen. Because the deeper you go into a mine, the more efficient your search will be. So you'll come up with more resources, more jewels, more everything. But there is a greater risk of losing oxygen and basically dying there. And I'm like, okay. So I said, wait, orphans? He's like, yeah. Orphans. They would bring orphans with them. And said, yeah, usually little boys, not little girls. Because, I mean, usually miners, coal miners are men. So they would bring little boys, little orphan boys with them. Once they saw that the little boys had difficulty breathing, they would all leave. The problem, though, is that men are single focused. They can stay on one task and forget everything else for a long while until they have a good enough reason to stop. Meaning, and I said, are you telling me that sometimes they didn't even notice that the orphan boys were losing oxygen? And he said, yeah. You're telling me the orphan boys that they used to bring with them used to die? He's like, that did happen. I'm like, why are you telling me this right now? Like, you know how I feel about orphans and the homeless people. Like, this is cruel, unusual punishment. Like, what did I do to you? And then he started to laugh, and he's like, no, that's not what I meant. Just, this was the old system. They used to bring orphan boys with them. I'm like, so they stopped doing that? He's like, yeah. So then what did they do instead? It's like, oh, you're getting ahead of yourself. Wait a minute. I'm like, okay. And so he said, instead, they figured out that birds can be a better warning sign to them in regards to the loss of oxygen. Because, you know, they're constantly chirping and all that. But there is one kind of bird that was most often used, and it just became a staple of coal mining. Like, okay, what kind of bird is that? He said a canary bird. Canary bird, you know, those, you mean those little yellow birds who never stop chirping? It's like, yeah. Huh. Why are the canary birds? He said, you said it yourself, because they never stop chirping. I was like, okay. What does that mean? He said, well, the deeper they went into the cave to dig out jewels or natural resources, they would hang a cage with a canary in it. And the canaries, they never stop chirping for no reason. And they would hang the cage at the very top of the mine wall. So basically, as long as the little canary bird was chirping, that meant, I was like, that meant there was oxygen. He's like, yes, that meant there was oxygen. That means there was still time for them to continue working. I'm like, okay. But as soon as they started to hear the little canary bird either slowing down his chirp, like chirping less and less, or stopping altogether, they knew it was time for them to leave, because I was like, oh, because there's no oxygen. Wait, so you're telling me they went from killing little orphan boys to killing little canary birds? It's like, well, yeah. I'm like, that's not better. How is that better? Okay, so a canary bird is not a human being, it's not a person, but it's still a being, a living, breathing being, and they're just killing them to keep them safe. That's just so wrong. It's like, okay. Yeah, I know it's not ideal, but that's the way it was. It's not the way it is anymore, but that's the way it was. I'm like, I still don't get why you're telling me this. And then he said, well, the reason why I'm telling you this is in regards to the example that you gave me. I'm like, yeah, you're basically like the canary bird. I'm like, sorry, does that mean I'm gonna get killed? It's like, no, that's not what I mean. He said, he said, the reason why the canary birds are brought inside the mine with the coal miners is to be as a warning to them. It's to keep them on their toes, basically. It's to not keep them guessing. So the fact that the canary bird is constantly chirping keeps them alert. They don't stumble on any bad surprises. They don't accidentally die there because of like a sudden lack of oxygen and they just weren't aware of it. The canary warns them. Like 9 times out of 10, the canary bird makes it out alive. I'm like, there's still that one time that the canary bird dies, and he's like, yes, but I mean, everybody dies, right? I'm like, yeah, I guess. So he's like, well, in your case, you being the canary bird, and let's say the coal mines being more the relationship, like romantic relationship. I'm like, oh, okay. What? He said, you, the fact that you never stop chirping. I'm like, does that mean I talk too much? It's like, no, as in, when you're asked a question, when you're asked like, what do you want, whatever, you know yourself enough that you don't have to keep men guessing. Therefore, the relationship is not strained in regards to having to figure you out all the time. I'm like, okay. So in that respect, it's the same case with the canary bird. The canary bird is there, is meant to be there because they serve as a warning to the coal miners that danger is afoot. I'm like, right, because lack of oxygen, but the possibility of lack of oxygen is like, exactly. In regards to you and the coal mines being the relationship, you take the same kind of role as the canary bird, but instead of lack of oxygen, it's more like lack of life, substance, lack of endurance for the romantic relationship. Because just like the canary bird, who never stops chirping and warns ahead of time the coal miners that there's danger afoot, possibility of loss of oxygen, they leave, the canary bird live, and the coal miners live. Mm-hmm. Well, you, when you're asked about what you want, what you need, blah, 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 you don't keep the men in your life guessing. You tell them right away. If there's something wrong, even like if you feel a certain way, you're not gonna go around the bush. You're gonna tell them right then and there, oh, I feel this, I feel that. Oh, you hurt me, why did you do that? Or blah blah blah, or whatever. Like, you're gonna let them know. That means they don't have to walk around eggshells around you. They know exactly what and who they're dealing with, meaning their romantic relationship with you stands a chance of, fighting another day. And I'm like, huh. So basically, you're saying that me, when I'm asked a question by the men in my life, and I just come right out and say it, is actually a good thing? And he said, yeah, it's an excellent thing. Like, you wouldn't believe the number of women who don't do what you do. Like, that is an asset. That is an asset that you have that most women don't. And I'm like, huh, why don't they know that? They should know that this would actually help them. And he said, well, for the most part, they get their advice from other women who, let's be honest, don't know ish about men, because they never ask men their opinion on things, which again is an asset in your case because you do. I'm like, interesting. Okay. Okay. So that's the story that he told me. And I have a pretty fertile imagination. So I took that story even further. Instead of just like relationships, I also, like, actually being in a relationship, I also equated that analogy of coal miners and the canary birds to the wooing stage, the getting to know each other better stage, to even figuring out if this opportunity is a good one. So instead of coal mines representing romantic relationships, the coal mines represented basically anything and everything under the sun. So job opportunities, um, business opportunities, travel destinations, mission from God, obviously, romantic relationships also, but all stages of romantic relationships, really. The wooing or courting, and then dating, and then the engagement period, and then the wedding, and then the actual marriage. Like, all those things can be represented by the coal mines. So let's take, for example, the example of like a business opportunity. Okay, so let's say I'm approached by a CEO who thinks that I will be a great asset to his company. But somehow deep inside, I'm just not feeling it. I feel like there's something iffy about this offer. But the advantages, and the location, and the paycheck that is showed to me, offered to me, basically becomes my main focus. And instead of listening to my intuition about it, I decide I will go ahead with the opportunity, the business opportunity, and I accept the offer of the CEO. And let's say like 2-3 months down the line, I realize I was right to feel that there was something iffy about this, and I should have listened to my intuition and not gone through with it. In this respect, the coal mines represent this business opportunity. The CEO in question would represent the miner himself, Miner. And my intuition telling me not to go through with it would stand for the canary bird. Instead of listening to the canary bird, my intuition, I went forth with the offer and ended up regretting it my entire life because let's just say the dude was in the mafia or whatever, and now I'm in it for life. So I should have listened to my canary bird. I should have listened to my intuition. I should have listened, period. So let's see what else. What other thing? Oh no. No. Okay. Let's say in regards to travel destination. So, oh yeah, I'm gonna use that because one of my friends, my close friends, went on a vacation recently to Mexico, and they didn't go to the right destination. So okay, here's the thing. So my friend, I'm gonna call her C, goes with her friend, let's say F, to on vacation in Mexico. Usually my friend C is the one who takes care of all the preparations and the planning and all that, and she makes sure and double checks that the reservations are done for the right place, the right destination, that the hotel, like every detail is covered. This time, however, her friend F says, I'll do it. Like, you always do it, let me take care of it. However, and C says, okay, I'll take a break, I'll let you do it then. However, C knows that her friend F does not have such a thorough work ethic as my friend C does. And her intuition is telling her, are you sure F should do this? You usually do this, and you always end up with great results. So even though, she means well, maybe it's not such a great idea to leave that responsibility in her hands. But my friend C is like, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. And yet her canary, her intuition told her, this is not gonna end up well. So, just like me and my CEO business opportunity, I decided to ignore my canary bird talking to me. My friend C, also decides to ignore her canary bird talking to her. Canary bird, example of intuition. And she does let her friend F do all the work in regards to the reservation for that trip. Come to find out, when they get there, friend F did not pay attention to the details of the trip, and they actually booked their vacation for a completely different region that had none of the amenities that they originally wanted on their trip. So because my friend C did not listen to her intuition and gave the benefit of the doubt to friend F, who took care of all the details but actually really didn't, and mistook two destinations. No, not mistook, but confused two destinations with the other, one destination with the other, which also speaks of dichotomy. See? They ended up in a place where there was basically no civilization. They were basically just tourists, so there was nothing cultural to really discover. They were only surrounded by other tourists, people just as clueless as they were about the place where they arrived to. She said, her words, not mine, there were no beautiful, sexy Mexican locals there either. So no summer flirt possible. There were basically nothing to see, like no museums, no natural landscape to admire or anything. The food wasn't really up to par, and it was in fact probably one of the worst vacations she's ever had. And she should have listened to her intuition, her canary bird telling her this is not going to end well. It actually did not end well. And now let's go back to romantic relationship, the subject of romantic relationship. Okay, let's say okay, well, I've actually been through this this example that I'm going to give, but it's not mine. It's my example because I'm the one who advised the girl in that example to go for it. So okay, let's see how to start this. Okay, let's say A and B. A is the girl, B is the guy. A and B like each other. A and B have an interest for each other. But A isn't certain that B wants them. Is not certain what A could bring to B's life. And subsequently, B feels the same way about A, but B is a little more certain than A. So A would be willing to go through with it as long as, so B would be willing to go through with it as long as B would see from A that A feels certain about it. So as long as A feels uncertain about the situation, B is not moving forward. He wants to, but he can't. So, I, being the ever observant person that I am, I come up to A and I'm like, you like B, don't you? A is shocked because she's like, how do you know? I'm like, I have eyes. I don't know what. I have eyes. I'm observant. I can tell that you like B, and I can tell that B likes you back also. But there's just one thing that intrigues me. And she's like, what is it? Because actually there's something I'd like to ask me, and maybe this will help. I'm like, okay. Well, the thing that I don't get is that I can tell that B wants to move forward with you, but you don't, and yet you show interest, but it's like dichotomy again. See, you it shows that you want to be with B, but your actions say that you don't. So that's confusing to both me and B. I can tell because he's paying close attention to you, and he's like ready to act, but he needs to know. B needs to know that you, A, really want this. Because if you don't, I mean, he's not gonna make a fool out of himself and like approach you for no reason. And he probably thinks, you know what, we'll just stay friends because that's what we are right now. So she was like, how did you, and I'm like, I don't know. I have eyes, I'm observant. God gave me the gift of discernment. I just see both sides of the medal, again, dichotomy, and I just know what's going on without no one telling me. Yeah, so call it a gift, I guess, or a curse, whatever. At the time, I thought it was a curse, but it's not. It's actually a gift, and it's pretty nitty. Anyway, so A is like, okay, I do like B, but I don't think I should be with B. And I'm like, why? Because B is all that. I'm not gonna say what. Okay. Because B is all that. And I'm this. And I'm like, okay. So what's your point? And then she's like, well, I got nothing to bring to the table of B. And I laughed out loud because this theory that goes away around all the time, this stupid little thing about the table. Oh, what do you bring to the table? What do I bring to the table? There is no table. There is no table. And that is what I told A. Girl, please. There is no table. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at you. It's just, I keep hearing this so much, so often. And it's stupid because people don't understand what they actually mean when they say table, because there is no table. The table doesn't exist. Because let's just take your example. If the table does exist, that means that in a relationship there is, let's take this one or this budding one for example, there's you, A, there's him, B, there's the relationship which binds you together, and then in the middle of that there's a table. There's a table. So then I asked her, so if the relationship is there and you're here, A, and he's here, B, and there's a table, what's on the table? And she said, I don't know. I'm like, try, because I mean, you're sure that there is a table to be filled, so that table must have something on it. So what's on the table? And she said, and I like, take your time. It's fine. Take your time. This is not going to be an easy question, I can tell. So just take your time to answer. She's like, okay. She took her time. And then A said, finally, I guess what's on the table is potential. And I'm like, potential. Okay. What else? So like, well, I mean, maybe not potential. I'm like, no. I'll tell you what I think after. I just need you to be honest right now. So you said there's potential on the table. What else is on the table? Okay, she's like, okay, well, there's potential. and um, there's qualities and values. I'm like, huh, okay, what else? And I guess future. I'm like, what do you mean future? She's like, well, things you aspire to be or to do. I'm like, oh, you mean dreams? She's like, yeah, dreams. Okay, anything else? And she's like, nothing comes to mind. I'm like, okay. So let me get this straight. In this analogy of a relationship, which binds you, A, and him, B, together, there is a table in the middle of you, also connecting you together. She's like, yes. And on that table, there is potential, there is qualities and faults. She's like, yeah. And there are dreams. She's like, yeah. Okay, let me ask you this. Potential for what? Dreams for what? Qualities for what? Faults for what? What is the one thing that binds them together? And she said, oh, okay. I'm like, take your time. There's no rush here. And she's like, well, potential, quality, faults, dreams. And she said, I guess what links them is oh. And I'm like, what? It seems like you figured out something. She's like, well, yeah, but I mean, I don't know what it means. I'm like, well, tell me, and we'll talk it through and we'll figure it out together. And she's like, okay. So I'm like, so what does it stand for? Potential, qualities, faults, dreams, what? She's like, well, they all stand for him, basically. I'm like, for. And I started to understand, but I needed to know that she knew what she was saying. So I wanted to make sure that what she was saying is exactly what she meant. So I said, for him, can you elaborate? What does that mean to you? Like, potential for him, qualities for him, faults for him, dreams for him. What does that mean to you? And she was like, well, like, is it enough? And I'm like, enough? She's like, yeah, like, is the potential enough for him? Are the qualities enough for him? The faults, are they enough for him, or like not too much for him? And the dreams, are they enough for him? And I'm like, oh, why for him? And she said, well, you know, enough to. And she was looking for the word, and I could tell she couldn't find it. She knew what she wanted to say, but she couldn't figure out the word. I looked at her and I said, oh, enough to please him? And she said, whoa. I'm like, is that it? She's like, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, enough potential, enough qualities, not too many faults, enough dreams to please him. And I'm like, to please him? but who pleases who? And she's like, oh, well. And I'm like, I mean, is it the relationship? Is it the table? Is it you? Is it him? What? She's like, oh, well, I guess me, A. So let me get this straight. There's a relationship that binds you together. It's like, yeah, you are here, A, he is here, B. In between you, there is a table set between you that links you together. It's like, yeah. And on that table are potential, your potential to please him, your qualities to please him, not too many of your faults to please him, and your dreams to please him. Enough of them, or not too much in regards to faults. She was like, yeah. I'm like, And she was like, what? White. And I'm like, because that's the thing. People don't understand what they mean by table. The table is redundant. She's like, what do you mean by the table is redundant? Redundant, as in obsolete, as in not needed. The table is you. She's like, what? Girl, please. You said, and I quote, the table represents your potential to please B, your qualities to please B, not too much of your faults to please B, your dreams to please B. What's the one thing that links all those things together? She's like, I don't know. I'm like, your. As in your, Y-O-U-R, your, as in belonging to you, as in a part of you, as in essentially you. The table represents you. The table is you. There is no table. There is just you. In a relationship, there's not a relationship, two people and a table. In a relationship, there is the relationship and two people. That's it. She's like, okay, well, then where is all that coming from? And I'm like, well, it comes mainly from social learning, because everybody says that thing about the table. What do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? And then I told her, you know, I'm just gonna tell you, there's so many stories in other stories in this, but it's important, okay? So bear with me. So I said, look, I'm gonna tell you a short story. Like, it's very short. She's like, okay. And after that, I think you will understand. She's like, okay. Let's say there's a man coming to you. She's like, okay. And he wants to get to know you. And he says, wow, you're beautiful. Wow, blah, blah, blah. You know, he showers you with adjectives and qualities and compliments and all that. She's like, okay. And he says, like, I'd like to get to know you better. And you're interested because, you know, he seems nice. He seems, you know, respectful enough. You don't know yet if he's a gentleman or if he's even worth your time. But, you know, he's worth at least a conversation. She's like, okay. And then he asks you, so what do you bring to the table? And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, but don't get sidetracked. Like, he tells you that. He asks you that. What do you bring to the table? What would you do? And she said, I would walk away. I'm like, You would walk away from someone asking you, what do you bring to the table? She's like, yeah. So then, Why are you asking yourself, what do you bring to the table? Why don't you just walk away from that question altogether? She's like, well, I don't know that guy in the example, but B, I know him, and like, I know enough about him. I just I feel like, I don't know, like, you feel you're not good enough for B? She's like, okay, well, this is getting scary. I'm like, tell me about it. But I'm like, yeah, you feel you're not good enough for B? And she said, I guess that's it. Yeah, I don't feel enough for B. And then I had to laugh again. I just had to, because I knew something that she didn't, or didn't realize, or just didn't want to realize, or something, whatever. Sometimes, misery loves company or whatever, and people love to dwell in self-pity or whatever. So after I was done laughing, she was like, what now? I said, you are exactly what B needs. More importantly, you're exactly what B wants. She's like, what do you mean need? And I'm like, okay, you completely surpassed once, but okay, let's go with need. And then I told A all the things that A would bring to the table of B, because there is no table. Basically, I told A the qualities and the faults, and she had a few, everybody has faults, okay, and the faults that she has that would balance his faults, and the potential that she has, although potential is never a good thing to pursue, but also her dreams, her aspirations, and just her overall personality in regards to B's personality, and why those two would go well together. And after I was done, she was like, oh, is that what you meant by there is no table? There is just me? I was like, mm-hmm. So basically, what people mean to say when they ask you, or ask even themselves, what do you bring to the table? It's because they don't feel certain about who they are and what they have to offer themselves. And whether then, instead of facing that for themselves, they turn the tables, no pun intended, around to the other person. It's our actually basic narcissistic behavior. And she's like, it is? Like, yep. Mm-hmm. Someone who asks you what you bring to the table, you don't just walk away from them. You need to face them and ask them, oh, that's funny. I was asking myself the same question. What do you bring to the table? And they'll be probably like, I believe I asked you the question first. And then you can reply with, well, one has to know the answer before they ask the question to someone else. So since you asked me, that implies to me, I'm guessing, that you already know the answer of what you bring to the table. So if you want me to answer, you're gonna have to answer me first. And then you just watch them walk away because they ain't got nothing to say to you, because they don't feel sure of what they have to offer to anyone. It's basic narcissistic behavior. It's BS. Point blank, period. So you have nothing to worry about. this guy B only has eyes for you. He only hangs out with you. Well, no, that's not true. He hangs out with a lot of girls too, but they're his friend. With you, it's different, and it shows it. It's seen. It's noticed by everyone. He treats you differently. Okay, it's not the same. It's not just like you're just friends. He definitely wants to be more friends with you. A and he how can I say this? He doesn't treat any other girl around us like he treats you. So basically, point blank period, you're a shoe in A for B. So the only one standing in your way right now is not even him, it's you. Because I can tell B is ready to make a move, but he's not going to if he doesn't get a green light from you. And she's like, well, how do I give B a green light? And I'm like, my best guess would be reciprocity. And she's like, what do you mean by reciprocity? I mean, the things that he does for you, do the same things too, and see where that leads. And she's like, what? Why would I do that? She's like, okay, I see. So you're thinking that since clearly B has an interest in you, A, then he should just be pursuing you. He should be chasing after you, basically. She's like, well, yeah. I'm like, well, no. She's like, why? And I said, because men don't chase without a reason to chase, and the chase doesn't start at the beginning. The chase comes after the known interest of both parties. He knows, B knows he's interested in you, A. He just doesn't know that you, A, are also interested in him because you're not showing him that. Like when he has his back turned, when he's not looking at you, everything about you screams, oh my gosh, I want B, I need B in my life. But as soon as he looks at you, as soon as he turns back around, it's like total cold shoulder with you. It's like Antarctic. You're so freezing cold, girl. It's crazy. And of course that gets him confused. And A was like, oh. She's like, okay, well, what even if I do reciprocity like you said, what would that do? And I said, I mean, I didn't say that then because I wasn't that close to God then, and I didn't read my Bible that much then. But I did say something like, you attract who you are, basically. But now I'm thinking that also stems from the Bible, do unto others as you would have done unto you. Since B is hanging around you, treating you differently, wanting to spend time with you, all that thing, and only has eyes for you, chances are this is part of his love language. And if you do the same thing, reciprocity towards him, you hang around him a lot, you want to spend time with him, you only have eyes for him, and all that good stuff, he will recognize his own behavior in you, and he will, it will click for him. Oh, she's interested too. And then the chase will start. Not before. Only after. One after the other. 77, cause and effect dichotomy. Yep, it's all tying up together. She was like, oh, okay. Alright. So she did that. And it did work. And they were together for quite some time. Like a year and a few months, I'd say. I didn't really pay close attention because after a while, she and I drifted apart. But that did happen. They were together for like a year and a few months. I don't know if it was a half, but it was a year, at least a year and a few months. So, in regards to that, with the, yes, because I did not forget, coal mines and the canary, in regards to like the wooing stage of relationship, like in this example that actually happened, actually. The coal mine would represent in this example the wooing stage of the relationship, of the budding relationship, because it wasn't a relationship yet. The coal miner would represent B, and the canary would represent A. But the thing is, B was doing its part. A was not. A was not. She wasn't chirping away. She wasn't telling it like it is. She wasn't showing him anything, you know, and she thought he would just like chase her like that. That's just not how it happens. It's not how it happens at all. And so, because of that, in that scenario, if the canary wasn't chirping away like A was supposed to, B, as in the coal miner, wouldn't even be paying attention to the canary, and therefore even more so possibility that they would both die. Therefore the budding relationship would also die. Yeah, so that was that. But once she actually trusted herself more, because that also had a lot to do with that, and trusting yourself more also has to do with listening to your intuition. Chirping canary. Everything flowed like water. Like, she no longer felt restrained by her self-judgment. She trusted herself more. She showed herself off as she sees herself, not how she wants him to see her. She focused more on her, less on him. He came a running, and that was that. Okay, so now there's this other aspect that I'd like to bring up in regards to what I said before. Kingdom marriage. Is it only just about like the marriage itself, or the relationship, or the kingdom spouse, or is it even much more than that? If you recall, out of the 77 Bible verses that I found in regards to treasure Bible verses, I'd say the most of them had to do with one thing: wisdom. Wisdom was deemed to be a treasure. Not pearls, not jewels, not silver and gold. And wisdom comes from God. So, therefore, the greatest treasure there is to have is wisdom. And you can only have wisdom through God. And there's this song. There's this song that I totally forgot the lyrics of. Just a minute. It's by Kirk Franklin. It's called Silver and Gold. Let's see, Kirk Franklin. Okay. Okay, and so I'm just done. Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna sing the chorus and the first verse. Okay, so I should have warmed up. That was not planned. Okay. Okay. Silver and gold, silver and gold. I'd rather have Jesus than silver and gold. No fortune, no fame or fortune, nor riches untold. Oh, I'd rather have Jesus than silver and gold. Don't give me a mansion on top of the hill. Don't give me the world with a shallow thrill, but just give me a savior. My life he can hold. I'd rather have Jesus than silver and gold. Woke up this morning feeling kind of down. I called on my best friend. She could not be found, but I called on Jesus. My life he can hold. I'd rather have Jesus than silver and gold. Silver and gold. That was a big theme also in the verses, most of the verses that I read, but like the gist of them had to do with wisdom. Wisdom is the greatest treasure you can have. Wisdom is given to you by God, from God. God is God in three persons: Abba, our Heavenly Father; Jesus, our brother; and the Spirit that is holy, our comforter, Holy Spirit. So, in regards, cause and effect, in order for you to gain the greatest treasure there is, which is wisdom, which comes from God, you have to seek God first. And what is it again? Which is why it says in the Bible, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Matthew 6, verse 33. So, therefore, you want treasure? The biggest treasure there is wisdom. Where do you find it? Is it from men? No. Is it from the sea? No. Heaven, the earth? No. Only God can give it to you. Cause, action. Seek God first. Seek first the kingdom of heaven, and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Effect, you gain wisdom and everything else that comes with it. Everything else that comes with it, including kingdom marriage. So, in order to get kingdom marriage, you first need to seek wisdom. And in order to get wisdom, you first need to seek God, the kingdom of heaven and all his righteousness. And then his righteousness, which stands for his wisdom, and all these things, kingdom marriage, business opportunities, travel, move, like physical moves, miracles, whatever. All these things shall be added unto you. Effect. Cause, action, effect. And there's also one more thing. Let me think. Yes, in regards to my example about, there's so many examples, I'm sorry. But in regards to the example of A and B, who wanted to be together, but A was too focused on what B thought of A to let herself show B that she wanted to be with B. Once she moved the hourglass of her attention, you know how, not an hourglass, sorry, an magnifying glass. Once she moved the magnifying glass of her attention, because a magnifying glass magnifies what you look at through it. So basically, all her attention was on, oh no, what if B doesn't like this about me? Oh no, what if B thinks that this isn't, I don't have enough of that for him? What if B this? What if B that? Magnifying glass was, all her attention was on him, was on B. But once she moved the magnifying glass from B to her and accepted herself as she is and just decided, you know what? If he doesn't like me for who I am, as is, then he just isn't for me. When she stopped, once she stopped worrying about what he thought of her, and if he thought really that she was a good fit for him, she seeked herself, which in this case would stand for wisdom, which comes from God. She seeked herself, and by seeking herself, she found herself, and then B came a running. All these things were added unto her. So kingdom marriage isn't just about the ceremony. Kingdom marriage isn't just about the promise. Kingdom marriage isn't about just the marriage itself. Kingdom marriage isn't about just the spouses. And kingdom marriage isn't just about the purpose. Kingdom marriage is mostly about you and God on your own journey together. And I mean you individually speaking, kingdom spouse to kingdom spouse. So kingdom husbands individually and kingdom wives individually, not in regards to each other, but to themselves and through the eyes of God. And sorry. And the more you seek knowledge and wisdom, which means the more you seek yourself through the eyes of God, which also makes you seek everything that is good, that is righteous, basically everything that composes the kingdom of heaven, then all these things, including kingdom marriage, shall be added unto you. So in order to gain kingdom marriage, you first need to seek wisdom. In this case, seeking wisdom means seeking yourself. You need to seek yourself first. You need to pursue yourself first. All those things that I said before in my part 3, in my part 3 message of the word waiting the wait, push, the 7 P words: pray, persevere, prepare, perform, pursue, proclaim, perceive. All these things should be done unto you first, unto yourself first, and then subsequently done in regards to your kingdom spouse, whether you know who that kingdom spouse is or not. But inherently, you'll never get anywhere in regards to gaining kingdom marriage if you don't gain yourself first. Because kingdom marriage, just like all relationships, they don't they don't hide traits of yourself. They don't hide the truth. They magnify them. So if before you two were even together, all you thought about was him or her, him or her, him or her, and you completely forgot yourself, you completely forgot God, marriage isn't gonna fix that. Marriage is gonna make it worse. It's just gonna be that 24/7, to the point that you won't even exist. Is that what you want your life to be? Like, you want to be, you want your mind and your spirit and your heart and your time and your life to be at the mercy of someone else, when they're in fact probably like focused on themselves, and then you're focused on them as well. Who's focusing on you? You're left out. That's not right. That's not fair. Do you really want that for yourself? I know I don't. So seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these things will be given unto you, shall be given unto you. The greatest of all treasures isn't kingdom marriage, isn't a kingdom spouse. It's not even kingdom love. It's none of that. It's wisdom. And wisdom, you can only get that from God, and by seeking God and his wisdom, all these things shall be given unto you, including kingdom marriage, including kingdom spouse, including kingdom love. It's that simple. Wow, that was supposed to be like a 30-minute word. Oh well. So that's it for me. I'm just gonna close with my usual prayer. For everyone who doesn't know God, Jesus, HS yet, and want to, this is the prayer of surrender from me to you. Dear God, I'm not a religious person, but I believe in you. I don't have the answers, but I know you do. So from this point on, I want to rely on you. Please forgive me. I surrender to you. I make Jesus my Lord and Savior. Give me your peace. Make all things new. And I will follow you all the days of my life. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, I hope this will at least enrich someone's life. I hope and pray that it will open up your eyes in regards to what kingdom marriage actually is. Is it just a fad? Is it just a trend? Is it just a viral thing? Is it just a promise? Is it just a ceremony? Is it just something to gain? Or does it go even deeper than that? I guess you decide, but I made my choice. So remember, I love you, but God loves you more. Continuing to pray for you all, and his grace is sufficient for you day after day, and at the end of the day, everything will be a-okay. Bye.